This is a D6 Generation Pip. Bite-sized content for a busy gamer. Sometimes featuring Craig, sometimes featuring Russ.
Hey, what about me?
Oh yeah, and sometimes featuring Raef, Hollywood Granger. Hey, welcome to another Pip. I'm here with Raef Hollywood Granger, who prefers not to go by Hollywood anymore.
No, I like Hollywood.
Okay, just double checking here.
Mm-hmm.
So Raef and I are here live in person, enjoying, and you want to clink, Raef, on audio here?
Clink.
We're enjoying a little, about to have some whiskey and Warmachine. We're going to enjoy some, we're going to sip some whiskey on the
Nice
air.
alliteration. I'm proud of my Hollywood name.
Yeah, I
like it.
You know, you've earned it.
That's my
I mocked you incessantly the first, 5, 10, 12 years or so. But now that it's been 13, I feel like you've earned it.
I need to translate that into a gamer tag, because my old gamer tag is Stone Dogs.
Yes.
But I go by Stony, and everyone just thinks I'm a stoner.
Oh,
which I'm a bourbon guy.
Is that
so?
Yeah, right.
I need to switch to Hollywood or something for my online character names.
I think that's right. Today we thought it'd be fun. So Raef and I are about to play a game of Warmachine. We're gonna do a special episode, or 2 episodes, I guess. We're gonna do an episode for the main show, which is what you're listening to right now, and we're gonna go through Warmachine Mark 4 changes as we understand them, and then we're gonna play a game of Warmachine and record elements of it, but that'll just be on Patreon for our patrons to check out. But we're gonna talk to you today about what we think about the new rules. And then we're going to try them, and then we'll let you know in a future episode maybe how we think of it.
And we're also going to have for Patreon, right? We're going to do post margarita mayhem.
Yes, post mayhem margaritas. Yes, which will be us having dinner tonight, talking about what we thought about the game as part of the recording of the game itself.
Yeah,
and we're not going to record the whole game because I think recording an entire miniature game in audio probably doesn't work. But we'll do a little preamble in the game, talking about the forces we chose and what it was like using the new app and what Mark IV forces look like. And then we'll maybe have a couple spots, highlights during the game of the new rules and what they did to the particular game, whether we liked it or didn't. And then the post-Mayhem Margaritas for our final thoughts after having played the game.
It'll be like the old school when we went to Dunks and we...
Yeah, it's like really having a 2-hour episode.
Right.
Except you're going to have to be a patron to get the second half.
To get this part of it.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there.
I do have some thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
So we've been wanting to play Warmachine for about a year.
Yeah.
And so I'm super psyched about this. And I'm super psyched about the show because and this probably exists out there, but I was like, I want to hear the rules in a podcast format. So when I'm driving, I could learn the rules. Now I found tons of YouTube videos, which were awesome. But I said to Russ, hey, why don't we go through the rules kind of old school D6G way? And that way listeners out there can hopefully hear what they are, at least in beta form. I don't even know. Are these beta or are these finalized? Or?
No, they're it. I mean, so what they've done is the app is in beta.
Okay.
The Mark IV has launched, right? And the rules are now the rules. You can download them for free in a PDF format from Privateer Press now.
You can.
You go to their store. It looks like you're about to buy them, but they're free. They're zero cost.
Oh, in PDF?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, is this with color and cool art?
Yeah.
So it looks good on an iPad?
It looks great on an iPad. There's not as much art as there might have been in an older rule book, and there's no fluff. It's just pretty much the rules.
Okay.
But there are 3 stories in the app that are fluff. So there is fluff. There's new fluff. It's
the
just
app, not the download that we just talked about.
Yeah, I don't know if the stories are on their download.
Okay.
I have to check that out.
But here's what's important about the app is I kept bugging Wakeland. I'm like, where do I get the rules? He goes, it's on the app. I'm like, where do you get the rules? He's like, it's on the app. It's not on the old app.
No, there's a new Warmachine application.
Right. So I think that was called
War Room
is 2.
War Room 2 is still around, but it's technically dead.
That's the old
you can still get
app.
it, but that's old Warmachine. That's
right.
Mark III. And if you want to try Warmachine Mark IV, there's actually an app called Warmachine. And one thing
it actually says Warmachine MK4, I think, or Warmachine 4.
I'm going to look at it. I'm going to go look at it right now.
But what you'll notice while he's looking it up is it has a white logo with the Warmachine grill.
Yeah, it looks like a Warmachine Jack.
Yeah,
like
Warmachine Jack grill. Yep.
And I think it's just called Warmachine app. Honestly.
Okay, all right. Pretty sure it's at 4, but
Warmachine.
I'm not into
app.
the details.
All right, I have found it. It is called Warmachine app.
Okay, Warmachine
at least on Apple. Now maybe on Android.
No, you're right. That's
Warmachine app. Now on the home screen it says Mark IV.
Oh, that's where I saw the mark.
But I presume someday it'll say Mark V. I don't know. So this is War Machine. Now,
and you download that app for free.
Yes, you do.
And you get all access to almost everything or everything.
So at the moment, you get everything, which is the rules. There's a section called Library, which has all the rules in it, and 3 short stories.
Oh, that's where the short stories are.
Yep.
Okay.
There's also a section called Build a Force, which has access to all the list building for all the currently available armies. That's the only place you can see currently available armies. So it's not like you got to go buy the codexes or whatever, but they're on the app. But there is a subscription service for the app coming, which will give you deeper functionality, including some of the lists will only be available to subscribers. So there's eventually going to become list builds, so you have to subscribe to get them. And then there's a play mode where you take one of the lists you built, and then that's where you track your wounds.
Just like the old one.
Just like the old one.
Which we'll be testing now.
Which we'll be testing today. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that's it. Now, worth noting, the reason the app is called Warmachine now, you might be thinking, what about Hordes? So Hordes as a game name no longer exists. There's just a game called Warmachine by a company called Privateer Press, and all the different factions that were in Hordes still exist, and all the rules for them still there, but they're in the game called Warmachine now. So just to avoid confusion, having 2 different game systems that were compatible, now you just have one giant game with Hordes and Warmachine.
Are you just... I mean, that's a fair assessment, but are you speculating? It's not like we've not yet reached out to Matt Wilson, which we hope to do, actually.
Yeah.
We've not asked him. Is this, or you've like, oh no, this is confirmed. This is what they've put on their publication.
I think it's confirmed because there isn't any like Horde stuff anywhere except in the app for Warmachine.
Okay.
And there's a rule book called Warmachine, and all the Hordes rules are in there.
Are in that.
Yeah. So like Warlocks are in the Warmachine book.
Because you were saying that there's not even Hordes rules like there used to be. No, they made a genericization of the terms.
Yeah, there's a Warlock still, and they're in the Warmachine book. And there's War Beasts, and they're in the Warmachine book. And there's this new term in the Warmachine book called a cohort, which is a model that is either a War Machine, a War Jack, or a War Beast, or a Vector, which is the Crisis of Convergence version of a War Jack. It's sort of its own thing. But so now they've recognized that over time they've created all these different nuanced things, and so they've tried to put them back under one sort of umbrella.
You want to go there? I like that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that right now?
I think I like that too.
Or do you want to?
Well, because
I like it.
Well, I always ran into this problem as a social media person. Like you're tweeting a picture of a game of troll buds fighting Khador, for example, and how do you hashtag that? Do you hashtag it Warmachine? Do you hashtag it Hordes? Do you hashtag it Warmahordes? Do you hashtag it all 3? But now it's just Warmachine, which I think actually is a lot cleaner to understand. Because now you have one game with like a gajillion factions, which is what you always dreamed of anyway.
Yeah, I always loved the fact that Hordes could play with Warmachine. I thought that was quite brilliant. And I think all I see it in my non-engineer brain, such as yours with the hashtags, it wouldn't have dawned on me, is that we called it Warmachine anyway. Mm-hmm. Like if I said to you, oh, let's play Warmachine, and I brought out my circle of Oberos, you wouldn't be like, wait a minute, I thought you'd be like, oh, okay.
No, exactly.
So to me, they're just using the more common parlance of the term to mean to play the Privateer Press game.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I didn't even notice in the app because you had pointed out to me like, hey, just so you know, Granger, you can't just, or Hollywood actually is what you said.
It is. It's exactly what I said.
You just can't build a force. And so I didn't even pay attention that Circle was in there because I just dialed into the 2 red forces, which was Khador, and we'll get into it. But I was ooh, interesting. So I didn't even catch that.
All right. So here's the thing. So I've got a list of all the changes summarized, and I wanted to give a shout out to the YouTube channel Warjacks with an X, Warjacks Games Club. They did a great rundown of all the changes, and they happen to have a screen with a list of them all. I just stole it. So I wanted to give them a shout out. And what's cool about that particular video, which is worth watching, is he creates a little matrix of positives and negatives.
Was that the S tier in the
tier? Yeah, and he gives his opinions.
That was a good video.
On them. But I won't share his opinions. Go watch his video. It's a great video. He did a great job.
It's a great video.
However, I did take a list of all those things, and I've already read the rules myself and have my opinions. So what I wanted to do is go down each change, and then I'm going to explain them to Raef so he's ready to play in about half an hour here. But also, I wanted to Raef's gut instinct, first reaction feel towards, now you've known some of them already, but what's your instinct?
I've glanced at them as they've come up in different articles.
So what's your instinct? Is it a good change? Is it a bad change? Is it a meh change? And then after we play the game in our post-Mayhem Margarita mode, we will discuss our feelings after I played the game at least once.
Yes.
And I will say, just getting ready for this and getting my models back out and touching them up, I got very excited again.
Me too.
And most of the rules changes I'm pretty excited about. Spoiler alert. I'm trying to think of some of the ones I don't like, but let's go through the list. So number one, and probably the biggest change to Warmachine, if you think about it, is arc removal. So they've removed facing.
Not arc node.
Not arc node, but like facing arcs.
We're
right?
talking like degrees of angles.
So in classic Warmachine, in every edition of Warmachine until now, there's always been a front 180-degree arc. And if you weren't in that arc, they couldn't see the enemy. And there was bonuses for attacking from behind and all kinds of other stuff. That's gone. Now there's just, doesn't matter, your model's just there, which is actually very similar to games like Star Wars Legion and Warhammer 40,000 and pretty much every other miniature game in the market right now. What's your feeling, Raef, on arc removal? And thumbs up, thumbs down.
I thought we were doing some sort of like, you had a cooler D6G type of rating system or something. So here, we're going to do...
like, don't like, or no opinion?
No, that's boring.
Okay.
We're going to do huge fan.
Okay.
And when I come up with middle opinion or no opinion, I'll come up with...
This will be the Hollywood rating system.
Yes. Huge fan of this rule.
Yeah. Why so?
Multiple reasons. Number one, I do think it speeds up play, which I did read an article somewhere, might have even been from Privateer Press, that they wanted to speed up play and they wanted to encourage an ability for the more casual player to step into Warmachine. So when I read this rule, that's the first thing I think. No more fiddling of placing the model and then checking the arcs and is everybody within range. And it also supports modelers, because that way if you've got a huge dragon with wings or a giant axe, you can now spin the model completely backwards if you need to, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Whereas before you might have a modeling situation that wouldn't let you place a model there. So I never really enjoyed the exacting placement of models. And I'm a doofus of a player, so there'd be situations where I'm just visualizing the scene of my Warjack going stomp, 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 stomp through the snow, and then you'd be like, oh, you can't charge him, he's in your rear arc. Ah, dang it. Because he's like on that line, not like literally behind me or something like that. So
yeah, it's funny, because I complained when they removed vehicle arcs in Warhammer 40,000, if you remember.
I liked you complaining about
I liked
that.
armor facings on the vehicles. I thought it was cool and tactical. And then once I played the game without the arcs, I was like, you know what? It makes the game more fun and faster. And so I think here I'm going to have to agree with you. I am going to be a huge fan of this also, because it just slows the game down, especially those long-range shots across the table. It's like, is he in the rear arc? Is he not? And you're constantly trying to adjust for all that. It's just...
Get the laser.
It was cool, but as these games get larger model counts, it becomes just...
I get the sense of it. It makes sense. You want to have a bonus to hit somebody
It's
from
cool,
behind, but
it's... I think we're in a place where that's no longer
I love the
necessary.
iteration.
So, good one. All right. Here's another one. Big change, because it's sort of a classic Warmachine thing. Free strikes are gone, meaning that so all models in Warmachine have a melee threat range, right? And that in Mark III and now 4, it's the inches are measured or mentioned on, they're not standard. So some models might have a 2-inch reach, some models might have a 1-inch reach. They kind of got rid of the 1/2-inch melee reach to make it a little easier, I think. Then there might be a 1/2-inch one in there somewhere, but most of them are 1, 2, or in some cases 3 for the really big models. And how it used to work was if you were within melee range of someone and you walked out of melee range, you could do it. So it wasn't like Games Workshop in the early days where you got locked in. They never were locked in. But if you walked out, the enemy got a free strike.
Plus
which
boosted
means
damage.
Boosted damage, so which is an extra die of damage, which can be very devastating.
Plus 2 to hit. It was very
Plus 2 to
devastating.
hit. It was very often you get hit or even killed in this case, but it was a desperate move, right? They got rid of that. So now what happens is you can walk out and you just lose your attack action. So you lose your action. You get a move and an action. You lose your action. So you can walk away, but you lose that ability to strike somebody, shoot somebody else, or strike somebody else. Mm-hmm. What's your reaction to that one, Raef? Huge fan. What are your other categories?
Well, I just came up with the middle category is going to be called medium pie.
What the hell's a medium pie?
Medium pie is that apple pie that's like, it's okay.
It's a medium pie.
It's like, it's not your favorite.
It is the Raef Granger rating system. I did ask for this. Okay.
Right.
And then you haven't got the low one yet?
I haven't got the low one yet.
This is a medium pie? Is that what you meant?
I'm leaning medium pie towards huge fan. And I have to give credit to Warjacks on that YouTube video, which is, I liked the idea of this is going to be good. It's going to be more fluid. You can just walk out. You no longer can you have one little model gum up an entire 15-point Warjack or something. So I liked it. But he did point out something which I wouldn't have thought of, which is you still can now have that 1-point model walk right into a Warjack, and now that Warjack loses its action.
When it walks away.
When it walks away.
So a cheap model can steal an attack from when it wouldn't have really killed it before.
Right.
Or it would have done light damage to it before.
Yes.
That's a good point. So what's interesting,
That's
though,
what makes me pick medium pie.
Yes. However, I've noticed certain models have a stat now. There's an icon stat called Unstoppable, and they ignore this rule. They don't lose their action when they leave. And my guess is going to be the larger jacks probably have this.
Yeah, good point.
But we have to go through and look.
Okay, so then if they put that back in, I'll go to huge fan.
Okay, so medium pie to huge fan.
Yep.
Huge fan. Okay, we'll put you in a. You've chosen a middling one. We have to pick one. Where are you? Medium pie right now.
Medium pie, because the change isn't out that we're speculating.
I think I'm a huge fan of this. Because I see what the Warjacks guy said, and I agree, but I don't really remember that so much as I remember really getting a lot of my gun mages and things gummed up and killed. And now, it's model by model basis, so I have a unit of 5 guys, and 1 or 2 are threatened. I can walk out now, and I don't think you can hear Rafe enjoying his pretzels.
I'm eating a hot pretzel. I don't want you guys to hear it.
So anyway, so I think I'm a huge fan of this one.
So you don't mind that your big what was that big Signar thing with the
Thunderhead?
Yeah, you don't care if my little manhunter just goes.
Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about the next rule.
Okay.
Doesn't suck as much because in old War Machine, if you're engaged in melee, you can't make a ranged attack.
Right.
Turns out in new Warmachine Mark IV, you can make a ranged attack. And there's no modifier unless you're shooting someone else who's already in melee. So in other words, if you're engaged, so your little guy walks up to my Thunderhead can still look across the table and be like, exhaust and shoot a lightning bolt at somebody else. It doesn't hurt him at all unless he shoots somebody in combat, and it's minus to he gets a bonus defense. So the other rule we should talk about is you can now make range attacks when you're engaged. How do you feel about that, Rafe?
Okay, I'm a huge fan of that.
Huge fan, all right?
And because of that, it changes my previous one from medium pie, which is apple pie, by the way.
Yeah.
And huge fan pie would
Which is apple pie. Oh, it's huge fan pie now.
No.
Okay.
I'm giving you pie rankings. And apple pie is medium. It's like, it's apple pie.
Okay.
It's not, what are you going to do?
What's a huge fan pie?
A huge fan pie would be strawberry rhubarb.
Ooh, that's my favorite as well.
Right. When you come across that.
Okay. So huge fan is strawberry rhubarb.
Right. Okay. All right.
There's no way people are going to understand what the hell's going on there. So it's right. Strawberry rhubarb.
Well, we're still calling a huge fan than medium pie, but just to give you
No, and medium pie is apple. Yeah. There are some really good apple pies out there.
Apple pie. There are some good apple pies. Yeah.
All right.
So
like Dutch apple pie with the cheese in it. Now you're talking.
I've not had that.
Well, we got to solve that. But strawberry rhubarb is the best pie on the planet, and I will accept no
homemade strawberry rhubarb.
Yeah, your fresh strawberry rhubarb from the garden. That's
can't
it.
Beat that.
That's
little
it.
vanilla ice cream.
Yeah. Did you know strawberry rhubarb is not common everywhere?
No.
That's kind of a New England thing.
Oh, it's a New England
thing.
Okay.
See, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. We should do. Let's have Terrace. He should do a New England tour, and then everybody can
but there's a
strawberry rhubarb.
There's a place in Germany that's like really famous for the rhubarb, and
let's go there.
I know we got to go there. I think
D6G
it might be Nuremberg. All right, so range attacks when you're engaged. Huge fan.
Yeah, huge fan.
Now, why are you a huge fan?
Well, I love shooting my bombards everywhere.
Yeah, so you can't shoot the bombards.
Now you can't walk up, you can't gum up.
See, in the old one,
melee attack
because it isn't one of your bombards. It's less effective if you move.
Yes.
So you could walk out and let the guy free strike you because you're a huge armored dude, but now your bombard attack is turned off.
Right.
So now you can stay there and shoot your bombards and let the little guy ankle biter keep whacking it.
Although I don't know, do you lose your rat in the new rules if you?
What do you mean lose your? No. But I thought the behemoth had a rule.
That was if you could run and still shoot your bomb.
Yes,
that's what it was. So that doesn't come into play here, but I know what you were getting at.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a strawberry.
Huge fan. Strawberry rhubarb on the range attack. So far, we're doing pretty well. Let's review. So of the first 3, we've got strawberry rhubarb. We've got a qualified strawberry rhubarb on no. So strawberry rhubarb on arc removal. Qualified strawberry rhubarb on no free strikes now that you can shoot, and strawberry rhubarb on free strike. And it's looking like all strawberry rhubarb.
Yep.
Which, to translate Rafe's, is big fan so far.
Big fan.
All right.
Big fan.
Okay. So the next one, they have fiddled, adjusted units, how units work.
Mm-hmm.
The big changes to how units function is unit leaders seem to be gone. There's attachment leaders, but like the leader of the unit, like there used to be stats on every card, like the leader grunt.
Yes.
And then the regular grunts.
Yep.
That seems to be gone. It's just like grunts. And units are smaller. So there's less models per unit, generally speaking, not always true. But more importantly, how unit movement works is different.
Oh, yeah.
So the way unit movement works now is during your movement phase for a unit, you take, or an activation, I should say, of a unit, you take any model in the unit, you move it its movement distance, and then the rest of the models are just placed within 2 inches of the model you just moved.
And are you sure it can be ahead, too?
Yeah,
Be
it can be
ahead.
any model. It doesn't matter where he is in the unit. You can move him.
So a
Yeah,
6-inch move can get, an 8-inch model.
Well, yeah, a 6-inch move can get one guy out. But if you declare a charge, the guy you move has to make it into charge distance.
Okay.
Right. So
I'm
that,
surprised they
that's
didn't
the part.
say, but can't go further than the movement.
But even charging is the same thing, where once the one guy makes it, the rest of the place within 2 inches of that guy. You can't just string them out. So your units are going to sort of be stars most of the time. Now, interestingly, though, there is they go into very detail. I read this a couple times in the rule book, where reposition, which is a common secondary rule on many models, particularly fast, nimble models, you get a reposition move after you do your basic move. In the repositioning, you do not have to be within 2 inches of the model that just moved. You can reposition any model any way you like. So after the unit does its normal move and everybody's within 2 inches of the model that moved, if you have a reposition opportunity, then you can kind of spread your guys out a little bit. Because reposition commonly like 3 inches is pretty common.
Yeah.
For cavalry, it's kind of like 5 inches. So that's sort of interesting. And I think there's also a reposition command card that lets you pull this trick off too. More about those later. So what's your reaction to how unit movement now works?
As a Khador player, I'm a huge fan because,
Are you?
Again, strawberry rhubarb, because number one, I don't remember which rendition it was, but there was a complaint for one of the editions of Warmachine that it became infantry machine.
Yeah.
And I've always really envisioned this as steampunk warjacks. So anything that supports warjacks being cooler than infantry, I'm a fan of. And so I like the smaller unit sizes. It de-emphasizes their power, as far as we know, or as far as I can tell. I'm not a min-maxer, so I have no idea. But I just like it thematically, or the cinema in my mind. It makes it seem like the warjacks are more featured. And as a model as troops that are pretty slow in the game, I like the ability to get an extra, inch and a half movement when I place a model 2 inches in front of the lead guy.
Nice.
And I don't care about being clumping up, especially with what we're going to talk about, what's coming up again. So I don't care that we haven't talked about yet about bombards.
Well, let's talk about AoE. That's a good segue. So you're a strawberry rheubarb on unit movement.
Yep.
So those of you who are familiar with we talk about AoE, right? We're talking about in earlier versions of Warmachine and many other miniature games, big templates of death, right? You put the template down, maybe it's a 3-inch template, maybe it's a 4-inch template, and it's a circular template most times, and you're trying to center it over the unit, and if everybody get under there gets hit. So if you're in your mind, you're like, oh my God, these units, they're all going to be centered around one dude within 2 inches. So they're all like pie plate death, which goes well with your pie rating system. However, they have really made a significant change to the AoE rules. And how they work now is your models, your weapons that have area of effect, AoE, have an AoE rating on them, which they've always had. And these AoEs might be a 3, might be a 4, might be a 5, right? Which used to mean the inches diameter of the template, right? But now what it means is the distance from the model you hit, first of all, that will be affected. But then second of all, it also means the maximum number of models that can be affected. So in other words, if I have an AoE 3, which would normally be a 3-inch template, which would get everybody within 2 inches of the leader under the old rules, now what it says is, well, if you hit the model you shoot at, presumably the guy in the center, you get everybody within 3 could be affected, but it's up to 3 models, right? So you can only get 3. So even if there's 5 guys all clumped together, you can still only get 3 of them.
Get 3.
Unless it's an AoE 5, then you can get 5 guys. So that's pretty interesting.
Yes.
Another thing worth noting is when you shoot an AoE, there's no longer any scatter. Most AoE weapons have a POW that has a slash in it. So the first number is for a direct hit against a model you're targeting, the strength of the AoE, and then the second number is for everybody else. So if you shoot that guy in the middle and you get 3 other guys, they all get hit with the lower number POW. How AoEs work now is if you miss, all that happens is the guy you were targeting gets hit with a lower number POW, and there's no scatter, no one else gets hit.
No one else gets hit.
No one else gets hit. So AoE doesn't get the blast unless you get a real hit. And if you miss, you just get a secondary damage on the main model. So there's going to be a lot less AoE death, except for maybe like AoE 5s. But even them, they used to be able to get like 7 or 8 models. Now they can max out at 5.
Right.
What's your reaction to this as a pie plate dealing Khador cannoneer of death?
Yep. I'm a huge fan of it as well because I just think it's cleaner. It's going to be easier for play. No more scatter dice. No more counting.
Yeah, that really slows things down.
It's going to speed up.
People get upset too, like, oh, it should have gone a little more this way or a little more that way, and or like, is it covering that base or not covering that base? Now
it slows up play for you because you now are trying to move and spread out.
Yes, exactly.
Now
you don't worry about that anymore.
Move them up. Let's go.
I mean, you want it, but you can't because the unit rules makes it so you're going to get some template. You're going to be template bait.
You're going to be.
But template bait is not as bad as it used to be because either you can give yourself some stealth or something so if they miss you, they only get one guy. Because before with stealth, the template could still deviate and get a lot of people. Now with stealth, it just auto misses if you're farther than a certain amount away. So now you just get one guy. So it doesn't matter. So there's a lot less like fiddly bits there, I think.
Yep. Agreed.
I like that too.
Huge fan.
All right, huge fan. Strawberry rhubarb on that as well. A lot of strawberry, making me hungry for strawberry rhubarb. It's not the season, Raef.
No.
This is a problem. This is a serious problem. Okay. This is an interesting one. They've standardized running. So what do I mean by that?
Oh, I don't remember that.
So running used to be when you run in Warmachine. So in Warmachine, when you activate a unit, you get a movement action, and then you get another action, which is usually combat action, like attack, shoot, whatever. You always had the ability to forego sacrifice your combat action to run, and in old Warmachine, run was doubling your movement speed. In new Warmachine, running is just plus 5 inches.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Kind of like charging. When you charge, it was always plus 3 inches.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how fast you were, it's just plus 3 inches. So running is plus 5 inches, which is very interesting now, because when you had a model that was very slow, moving 3 inches, when they run, they still have plus 5. And when they were very fast before, like cavalry doing 7, when they run, they're only plus 5.
Yeah, they're just across the board.
So that's sort of it. Now, they all have reposition on cavalry, so they're still pretty damn quick. But this is sort of interesting. What's your reaction to this one?
Love it.
Love it. Now, love it's not an option. Huge fan. Huge fan.
Strawberry rhubarb.
Strawberry rhubarb.
Because, again, I'm not that good of a player. I'm not a competitive player. I'm a casual player. And so I'm going to forget that your cavalry can move 7 plus 7 and then another 3 and end up behind me somehow.
Yeah.
And also, again, as an army that's basically base movement 4, it's pretty nice. I'm getting an extra movement here.
All right.
Huge fan.
Huge fan. Now, I feel like I knew you were going to go on this next one because you just mentioned earlier that you've always envisioned Warmachine as a game of giant jacks and steam-powered jacks and war beasts and such.
And warcasters.
So one of the things that's new is jacks and beasts and things called cohort models, which are...
I'm not a fan of that name.
Okay, well, it is what it is. Yeah, I don't like it either, but it is what it is. However, you can now customize them. Not all of them, but many of them. So many of them have different head options, different weapon arm options, and even chest options in some cases. So now you can, and they're when you buy these new kits, they have spots for the magnets, so you can snap the arms on and off. So the idea being that you can, and it costs points, so you can decide like, maybe I want this head, which gives me some stealth, or maybe I want this head, which gives me headbutt. Maybe I want this arm, which just gives me a cannon. Maybe I want this arm that gives me a shield. The idea being the Warmachine, the War Jack is armed differently, and or the War Beast is evolved differently, or whatever. What's your reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan. I mean,
huge fan, or just sort of? Are we in apple pie realm?
This is apple pie for me.
All right.
I don't. I wasn't that person that got irritated if my model was equipped a certain way. I was that person that was like, well, I'll just buy the other variant. Gave me something else to buy and paint. But I'm not going to begrudge anybody that's like, I don't want that. I want to buy my one model and be able to swap out a whole bunch of options. So for me, it's not a particularly thing either way. And also, I tend to just kind of learn a variant and just play with that over and over and over again anyway. So apple pie for me, but I'm not going to hold it against anybody who would be like, this is huge for them.
I think what they're trying to answer with this is the complaint that Warmachine never had model or unit customization. So Warmachine was always sort of like everything was standard. When you had games like Warhammer 40,000 where you had like codexes with all these different war gear options and you could change out
the plasma
pistol.
What's interesting is they've slimmed down on that, especially I shouldn't say Warhammer, but Age of Sigmar.
But now there's war gear options. So this is kind of like war gear for war jacks and war beasts where you can do some customization. So even though you and I both might be Sigmar players running the new Striker war jack, my striker warjack might have a shield and a electric sword, and your striker warjack might have a giant a two-handed glaive sort of situation, right? And with different heads. So mine might have stealth, and yours might be faster, or something. I can't remember. Those are probably not real options on that jack, but you get the idea. Right. So I think that's kind of cool. And then you can imagine also people like really, modding out their models to have cool variants of these sorts of things, which would be kind of neat. So, I think variety is always good. And since it's all in the app, you can see what they are. So that's sort of interesting. So you're saying apple pie middle. I think I'm kind of
apple pie.
I think I'm kind of apple pie middle also. Although I do enjoy building models with magnets in them and swapping them in and out. I discovered this when I got some of the Warcaster Kickstarter stuff because they experimented with some of these ideas in their Warcaster game.
I think the other thing maybe why I don't like it too is that sense of like how the arm's just a little bit off because the magnet's a little bit off.
Well, they're pretty boring, that stuff, so it's going to be nice. So hopefully it'll be
pretty bored. Okay.
Well, not bored even. Remember they're 3D printing everything now, which is sort of interesting.
You want to talk about that now or later?
Let's do a future episode on that because that's a whole episode, I think. All right. So another rule change. I'm curious what you think about this one. Rough terrain is different. So it used to be that, and many miniature games were this way, where you just pay double your movement when you go through, let's say, a forest template. So the tricky thing about that, right, is like, well, okay, so I'm going to be entering the forest template, and it's going to take me, I got 10 inches of movement, and it's like 3 inches to get to the template, and then I'm in the template for 3 more inches. So that's really 6 inches in the middle. So how many inches am I going to have left? Well, it's the 3 doubled, which is 6, plus the 2 from the outside is 8. So I'll have 2 inches off the other side of the terrain. Oh, but then my base is longer than that. So I had to get my base all the way through that. How much of the base cost? So should I be paying double more than that? Oh, that's gone. Now it's just if during your move you are starting in difficult terrain or you'll be entering difficult terrain, it's minus 2 inches to your revolve speed. Period. End of story. Doesn't matter how far you go through it. All that stuff. It's just minus 2. What's your reaction to that?
Low pie. And now I got to come up with
low pie.
Low pie.
So you think it's going to make the game worse?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. So what is a low pie? What's a bad pie to Raef Ranger?
I'm thinking of like, what's that pie with the like coconut? Is it coconut meringue pie?
Coconut cream pie?
Yeah. That's gross.
Is that the one everybody? Is that the one where they pie everybody?
Everybody, I don't know. Everybody loves coconut cream pie or coconut meringue pie. It's gross. That's no good.
Cream.
And I don't, I could pick like mincemeat pie or something. We're not going to go there.
You're gonna stay sweet. You're not going savory
like that. Yeah. So
don't bust on my savory pies. I do like a good meat pie. All right. Gross. Okay. We'll talk about that later. All right. So there's another whole episode there. All right. Why do you dislike this? I actually think this is pretty cool.
Sweet. It's too sweet. It's too much whipped cream. There's no pie.
Not the coconut cream pie. I mean, this rule. Why don't you like? More whiskey for Granger. Why? Okay, I understand coconut cream pie. It is too sweet.
Too high.
And if they cover it in the actual coconut shavings,
the actual coconut.
What the hell are they thinking? I don't even know. No one wants a coconut in their pie. Let's be honest. No. On the rough terrain thing, why not just take 2 inches off and call it a day?
The crust gets really soggy with the coconut. Okay, I don't see the problem from before. It was like you just said. It was super simple.
Was it?
Yes, I can move 4. I'm going to run 8. Oh, I'm 3 inches to the edge. I calculate how much through, and I go through, no problem. Because here's my question now. Yep. What's the current rule? It's what?
If you're going to enter difficult terrain at any point in your movement, it's minus 2 inches to your speed.
Okay, so what do I do if I've got 4 inches of speed, and at 3 inches I hit the edge of the terrain?
Minus 2.
I don't have 2 inches left.
You just get the train to stop.
Okay, so you get the train.
But that'd be like you have 10 inches of movement, and at 9 you get there. What do? You stop also.
Well, you'd go a little bit.
I guess you go a half inch.
Right, which matters when you're poking out the other side. Now,
I have to read what it says on that situation.
See, that's
my instinct is you would stop, but I guess that's okay.
Because what do I do if I've got a big? Because again, I have only 4-inch movement.
Right.
Okay. So what am I doing if I've got a big forest template?
Yeah.
Right. If it's minus 2.
But here's the fun part.
Does that mean I'm only going just 2 inches in?
Yeah, but before with the new run rules, if you run, you get 5 extra inches. It's pretty awesome.
So you just run through the terrain is what
I just run through it. minus 2.
Okay. And of course there's Pathfinder all over the I and command cards give you
There's command cards for Pathfinder too, which is pretty sweet.
They're making it sound like they wanted to make the math of it harder or easier. I don't think it's
the math of it. It's just to make the complexity go away. So I don't know. Okay. So I'm going to put it in the middle. See, I've been doing this long enough as a wargamer where I don't think it's a problem.
That's the other thing.
I think for new players, the half speed is a bit weird. But in D&D, they do the same thing, so I think everybody's used to it. But in any case.
That's how I feel.
All right. You're going to say it's coconut cream pie. I'm going to say it's middle because I've been agreeing with you pretty much on everything. I'm going to say it's middle. I'm moderately. I have no feelings about it. Moderate. All right, the next one, and I forget the bonus for this, but elevation is back. So in old school Warmachine, you got bonuses for having elevation.
Yeah, it was +2.
In Mark III, they threw it out. There was no advantage having height. Now it's back. What do you think? Do we care?
Does it give me +2 to hit?
I believe it does. I have to look it up, but I think it is. I think it's a bonus to hit.
Coconut cream pie.
You make it worse.
Yep.
Coconut cream pie. Dislike coconut cream pie.
Low pot. Because now it adds another layer of if this is supposed to be easy and streamlined, then the old way is easier and streamlined. I get on a hill, it doesn't matter.
But what about the Obi-Wan Kenobi rule?
What's that?
It's over, Annie. I have the high ground.
Higher ground.
You're saying high ground doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because it slows the game down. Because now you have to choose. Am I going?
Yeah, but we're already giving up arcs. I feel like high ground. I mean, why put a hill on the table? So you're taking hills don't matter on tables. It's just decorative.
It's aesthetics.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that.
And there's the whole problem.
I disagree. I am a huge fan of this one.
It's a huge, and also because now hills have to be able to hold the model.
Yes.
Now you're doing that thing where you're stacking dice.
Yes.
And we got to play the Wakeland rule, which I agree with, by the way. Everybody should know the Wakeland rule is if the model can't stand there on its own, you can't position.
That's actually a Warmachine rule now too.
Oh, it is.
Yes, it is.
So I agree with that.
And I'll tell you, they are releasing terrain. So Private Press has been playing around with terrain for a little while now. And they actually have a guard tower now where you can put the models on the top of the guard tower. So I think this rule exists because it makes the guard tower cool.
Okay, well.
So, yeah, putting guys on the top of a castle wall, like a castle wall kind of thing. Yeah. You're saying there'd be no bonus up there? No, you're on a castle wall. You should get a bonus.
I get the fluff of it or the math of it, but
yeah,
low pie for me.
All right. Now, this next one's interesting. They have, the way the Warjacks Games Club positioned it, I don't know if I'd quite call it this, but they call it simpler power attacks. I'd call it clearer power attacks.
Okay.
But anyway, power attacks are clear. So power attacks in old Warmachine were basically essentially wrestling moves your jacks could do.
Yep.
Right? So you could two-handed throw someone, or you could headbutt them, or you could slam them and send them sprawling across the table, right, and knock them down. And
you could trample.
And the problem with power attacks is they're an awesome idea, and you want these giant war machines and war beasts doing all these crazy things, but they don't happen as often as you would hope. And so every time I just feel like you and I are always looking them up, right? Which is fine. But here's what they did. So now power attacks are basically, and you forget you can do them. That's the other thing.
Yes.
The big thing I always forgot.
Yep.
So now, first of all, all Warjacks and Warbeasts used to be able to do them unless they didn't have a hand. And so it was very easy to forget what those options were. Now what they've done is, first of all, on your cards, there's always been these little icons which tell you any special abilities. And now all the different power attacks appear as icons. So, for example, not all Warjacks can headbutt, but if they can, they have a headbutt icon with a little explosion next to it. And if they can trample, there's a giant foot with a little explosion next to it. And they all have similar art, so you can tell it's a power attack kind of thing. Or if they have throw, there's an art. And there's slam, there's an art. So basically now they can make it so some Warjacks can trample but maybe not slam. Other Warjacks can headbutt but maybe not trample. So small Warjacks can maybe headbutt. Bigger Warjacks can maybe trample, right? So it's kind of cool. They can turn it on and off. But also you won't forget them now because you'll look at your card and go, oh, I forgot I can headbutt, right?
I like that.
The second thing that makes them more straightforward is the POW of the power attack is consistent based on your base size relative to whoever you're power attacking. In other words, if your base sizes are equal, it's POW 12. If the attacker's base size is bigger, it's POW 14. That's it. Pretty simple.
Okay.
And collateral damage is similar. It's based on base size, right? So and that's collateral damage, like you slam someone into a wall or whatever, right? And that's pretty much it with power attacks. So what's your take on these changes?
I got to ask more questions.
Yeah.
The other problem with power attacks were they were fiddly, and half the times you were like, I'll just hit with my axe and hope for a critical.
Right.
Because then it was like two-handed throws versus one-handed throws. Right. Then you had deviation. Then you had super slams. What do you do if you slam into another model that's stationary? What if he's smaller? Does it pass over? So what'd they do without all that? If they cleaned that up, and if you want to pause, just pause.
I think they did.
Dead air necessarily, but...
All right, so I've looked this up. I paused the show for a moment.
Yes, we wanted to be accurate.
Yeah. So there are now basically the kind of power attacks there's the slam, which I mentioned. There's the headbutt. So the slam still sends you straight back from the slammer a number of inches. Headbutt is just basically knocks the guy down if you're successful. Then there's a throw, but the throw is very simple now. So how throws work, there's no longer a one-handed throw or a two-handed throw. The way throws work is you have to have a weapon that's not crippled, that has the throw power attack icon on it. Mm-hmm. So again, it's going to remind you this weapon's got a special ability called throw. And when you throw a jack, it's really easy. You roll to hit. If you hit them, they get thrown D6 inches directly away from you. So there's no more like picking a target, throwing at them, he scatters, all that stuff. It's kind of like a mini slam. You just throw them straight ahead. So there's basically slams, either a throw or a slam. And the difference is the slam is you're basically charging and you hit them and they go flying backwards. And a throw is basically a slam where you just use your arm and throw the guy.
Base to base. And
right. Okay. And the damage of these things is all based on the base sizes. So, and there's a little bit extra. There's bonuses. If you're larger than they are, they get an additional 2 inches of distance when you slam them or throw them.
And small models pass over top.
Yes, and they take collateral damage based on the base differences. Yeah, and then trample is sort of the same idea. You just go through them, and then everybody gets hit by the same POW as the power.
I'm gonna say I'm torn between apple pie and
strawberry rhubarb.
Right. I'm gonna vote with apple pie.
Apple pie.
So
okay.
I do like. I've always wanted to use power attacks. I love the fluff of it. I like that there's creative. But I'm thinking in the middle of a game, I'll probably just use my standard attacks.
I think with the icons, you'll think about it more. So when I use my weapons, I'm always looking at the icons on it. Like, oh, this one's got flame. This one's got... And so I think the icons will help remind us about our power attacks. Yeah. But that's going to be at the play some. But I'm feeling strawberry rhubarb in this one.
Okay.
But we'll see.
I can see it.
All right. So here's an interesting new one. So the rest of these are sort of... well, there's one more easy one, and then we'll talk about some more things that are kind of more meta. So one more interesting rule is you can only attack enemies now. Mm-hmm. I mean, so before you could shoot friendly models.
Yep.
And initially,
friendly models.
I'm not even sure this was intended, but it became part of the game where you could. It was a great way with AOE templates to hit high defense enemies because you shoot your own guy, and then the splash gets the high defense enemy, or you throw your own models into high defense enemies. Yeah. And that kind of stuff with slams.
There'd be fun things where that model you threw couldn't be knocked down.
Right. So what's your reaction to this one?
I like it. I'm going to say huge fan, strawberry rhubarb, because I loved the creativity of it all, but the fluff of it all I never was comfortable with. Yeah. I can't, if I put myself in the eyes of my commander, my warcaster, I'm not going to shoot my own person.
Yeah. It was happening too often. I could see the once in a while where it's a danger, your warcaster's about to be killed, and you shoot your own jack to save the day. Those moments were cool, but I felt like it was getting abused. Like people were building lists for this purpose.
For that unique.
And it became sort of like, we're going to take this very expensive war machine and intentionally shoot it with a bombard, kind of thing. Yeah. And so I agree with you. Like I felt like there were certain factions that made more sense, like Scorn and Crix maybe, but...
Right.
But yeah, I didn't see it with others. And I could still see exceptions coming up for that stuff. I could imagine a world where there are special rules on certain Scorn models that allow you to shoot them. It's just in the core mechanics you can't do that.
I hope they don't, but I could see that. Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
I mean, I could see like things that float around the battlefield, you shoot to blow up and that kind of stuff on purpose. Yeah, but it would be intentional, right?
Okay.
So, but anyway, I like it. I like it. All right. So now the rest of these are sort of interesting. One of the big changes is the addition of these things called command cards, which I think actually modernizes Warmachine, if we're being honest. So what the command cards are is when you're doing list building, it's part of your list building process. When you build your list, you are given the option to include 5, or you have to actually include 5 command cards as part of your list. And these are known. It's not a secret. And each faction has their own list of command cards. Now, some of the command cards are the same for different factions. Like I think both you and I have one that gives you Pathfinder, for example, ignore difficult terrain. Most of the command cards cost no points. You just pick 5 of them, but some of them do cost points, which I already found was interesting because my list was 1 point. One of the list variants I was working was 1 point short, and a command card was a nice way to fill that extra point.
Yeah,
which is sort of neat.
That is neat.
But essentially, it brings it more in line with games like Star Wars Legion and Song of Ice and Fire. And, of course, now current Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer Fantasy, where you have these cards that can sort of add faction flavor and also sort of surprise your opponent and get you out of tough situations. What's your reaction to the command cards, Raef?
What do you think I'm going to say?
I don't think you're going to like it.
Yeah, I'm low pie.
Low pie. You're coconut cream all the way. Why don't you like it?
It slows the game down. I like the idea that we're streamlining the game. No free strikes, no arcs. Now people are going to be pouring over their hands and which.
Well, it's only 5 cards.
I know.
There's
and
no
it's
deck.
Only one turn and stuff.
And they're generally one-use cards.
And it genericizes everything. Like if you want Pathfinder, well then get a model that has Pathfinder.
I can see that.
So I don't.
Here's what I like about it. I think it helps. It helps the player who wants to build a list of certain models they love, but every once in a while you need Pathfinder.
Okay. I'll grant you that.
And I happen to have a caster today for the game we're going to play who gives most of his Warjacks Pathfinder. Mm-hmm. So I did not choose to take the Pathfinder card.
Right.
Instead, I was like, well, I'll take this other crazy card. Like there's one card that gives you, it's called Power Up, and it gives your Warcaster 1 extra focus.
I saw that.
And there's so many games of Warmachine, I was just like 1 point short at this one moment of the game. Now, it could be considered the easy button, but it could also be considered the newbie, like, you're not screwed button. Like, oh, I didn't realize the woods worked that way or something. So, and then for the veteran players, I think people are going to go for some interesting builds with these command cards. And I can see over time them getting much more faction specific.
That I would like. If they go very theme and very faction specific and they become kind of cool and unique, I'll move it to medium pie.
Okay. In fact, I want to go there next. So there's this other thing that's changed, and we just said faction specific. So the definition of factions is sort of interesting now. So they've gotten rid of theme lists. So over time, Warmachine added this concept of theme lists.
Which no one almost never did.
Which very few people did. Which the idea was if you built a list of Khador matching a certain fluff style, so for example, all Storm Knights with a Storm Knight Warcaster, everybody immune to electricity kind of thing.
Yep.
You got bonus abilities in the game, or bonus list opportunities.
Yep.
And they did this for all the different factions, these different themes. They threw all that out in favor of, let's be honest, going the Warhammer 40,000 Codex route. Meaning that in Warhammer 40,000, there aren't just Space Marines, there are different flavors of Space Marines. And each of these Space Marines has their own codex. So there's the Ultramarines, there's the Dark Angels, there's the Space Wolves, and each of these codexes are pretty unique. There's some things that are shared, like the basic Marine is roughly the same in all 3 of those things. But after that, it gets really interesting. And they're on tanks, and they're on special abilities, and their own rules. It looks like Warmachine's going this way. So, for example, there isn't a Signar list when you do an army list. There's Signar First Army, which is the first, basically, division, like the Big Red 1.
That's neat.
And there's the Signar Lightning Brigade, which is all Storm Knights, right? And each of these lists limited to 3 at the moment, and I'm sure they'll change over time, 3 different Warcasters, and they're not the same as the other 3 lists. So you can't there's just not. And then there's different units. And the Warjacks that are in the Lightning Brigade are completely different than the Warjacks that are in the First Army.
Yep.
And Khador has a couple as well, right? The Corps, I forget, the Winter Guard. And
there was the Winter Field Army and then the Winter Corps and then the Man of War Corps.
And right now, we're kind of like when 40K reboots. When 40K reboots, right, and the Ultramarine Codex comes out first, and you're still waiting on the Dark Angels Codex. That's kind of where we are now. Like the Trolls only have 1 army, and it's the armies from the north or something. So they're basically not the full Trolls yet. Mm-hmm. And right now, for example, there's no way to field gun mages.
Right.
My guess is, although I have no evidence of this, but my guess is there will eventually be a gun mage sort of arcane list for Signar that will have gun mages in it and Kane kind of caster and those kind of people, but not right now. So right now I can't field my gun mages technically by the rules. But I think they're going to go down this route of like 40K does with all these different codexes. What's your reaction to this?
I'm a huge fan of this.
Are you really? So this is a strawberry rhubarb situation.
Yep, for multiple reasons. I see the potential business model behind this, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm putting my business coachy hat on or my entrepreneurial hat, and I'm sure I'm not the only idiot who's thought of this, and I'm sure Matt Wilson's thought of this. And I'm a big fan of Matt, and I want Matt and his company to succeed. I like Privateer Press. Mm-hmm. I've always been a fan. I'm a fanboy. So I like what I'm envisioning. I have no idea if they're going there with this, but there'll be a Khador field manual that's going to be hardbound with beautiful art and fluff and pictures, and it'll be beyond an app. Maybe it'll be kickstarted for only those of us that want to pay money to buy a book. But then there'll be those little themed armies in there. That's cool. The army I chose today is Sorsha, who's in a Man of War suit of armor, which I didn't even know existed. And so I'm playing like...
You must have a stand-in model for that.
I do. What I did was I put Sorsha on a bigger base.
All right, cool.
For the stand-in. So that way we'd be fully painted.
Yeah.
But what I love is I love playing the Man of War, which have never been meta. They've never really... The old-fashioned ones, too, with the shield cannon and the axes. Yeah. And so it's really cool to see an army sort of themed all around that. I've also always wanted to play battle mechanics. And this army makes it viable because of the way the points work out. Then I'm like, oh, I've only got 2 points. Oh, look, battle mechanics. I don't have 100 choices of 2-point models. Now, I couldn't play a Manhunter and some other things, but I like, as a modeler and a purchaser, and I want to support this company, I'm going to buy the Sorsha and the Man of War armor now. Right. And by not making me play Vlad, which is my favorite caster, as you know, Sorsha's I don't know if she's my second best, but I do like Sorsha. So it's going to encourage those of us to be like, well, I like this. Oh, it doesn't let me play what I normally play. And now we might have to actually buy models. Now, I don't know about this 3D printing thing. I don't have a 3D printer, so we'll talk about that.
No, you don't have to print them yourself. So this is just Privateer is going to 3D print everything instead of doing spin casting or resin or plastics, like plastic molds.
Why do I care? Is the quality going to be as good?
The quality, they can supposedly, this is a whole other show, but you can do different poses, different stands, because when you 3D print something, you're not restricted to it has to fit on a sprue, has to be assemblable. You know what I mean? Okay. And they can sort of print on demand. So this is going to be interesting.
And I know that's tabled for another thing. Yeah. But so I like the fact that it encourages me to buy models into the range.
Well, that happened to me too. So looking at the 2 army lists, the first army looked like it was based more on traditional Signar models that I already had. So unfortunately, Stryker, I'm pretty sure Stryker died at the end of Mark III. So Stryker's not around anymore, who's my favorite caster. But I do have Jeremiah Cray, who's this cool mounted sort of Civil War Kempe looking dude. So I had him. He's one of the casters available. And most of my other jacks and the trenchers and all that sort of stuff, the chain gun crew, which was never viable before, I'm going to try them today. They do have a special rule that I think makes them viable even against Man of War. The handler can spend an action to make all attacks boosted damage, which I think would even affect a Man of War, which is pretty sweet. So I'm excited about that. But then looking at the Lightning Legion, which I've always liked the Storm Knights. I have a bunch of Storm Knights. I have a bunch of Storm Guard. I have the Thunderhead. What's interesting is the Thunderhead doesn't exist at the moment in the rules.
Yeah, my Behemoth doesn't.
He might come later.
I have a feeling it's...
And neither do the Colossals at the moment in most factions either. They're coming back. I mean, it's like rebooting 40K. You got to wait for your stuff. But what's interesting is in the Lightning Legion, the new Storm Knights, I could use my old Storm Knight models, but the old Storm Knight models have like a buckler and a sword. The new Storm Knights have these giant electrical shields that look awesome, and their armor's better now because they have these giant electrical shields. I just think they look badass. But then also the jacks for the Storm Brigade are all the new multi-part assemblable, cool, nothing like them before. Like there's actually a Stryker jack named after in honor of Stryker. So now I want that jack. I don't have any jack like that because it's new. It's the multi-part guy. In the first army list, all the jacks are pre-built with no assembly, so I can use my classic jacks. So now I can use my classic list, but now I want to go buy the new Storm Knight Legion because I want to go get the new Storm Knight models. I want the new jacks.
Oh, I see.
There's also a cool, like Sorsha, there's a cool new female caster in Storm Knight armor. She looks amazing. There's a cool mounted Storm Knight that looks amazing. Now, I could go build my old mounted Storm Striker I ever built, who I could use as a stand-in guy, I guess, for that. But very excited about that. So it did make me too. And the scopes, the 3D printing stuff, and these new boxes are all the 3D printing stuff. The poses look insane. Like I'm sure you've noticed them. They look really, really cool.
No, I've not seen any of the new art or new.
Oh, you should check it out. It's all on their website. Okay. So I am in on this theme, this Codex thing. I'm going to call it the Codex version, which I know they're going to hate, but the new or maybe the micro-themed army lists, because I think it's going to make them able to balance the game better, but still have access to all your favorite stuff. You just got to buy or have multiple lists. So for me to feel a Stormlight Brigade, I'm close. I could certainly use the Thunderhead standing in for one of the pre-assembled guys with the right gear.
Yep.
And then I would just need one of those Warcasters, and I'm pretty good.
I like miniature companies that allow us to play with what we've got.
Yeah.
And again, if you had something that wasn't quite WYSIWYG, of course the Thunderhead.
Well, the other thing they've said is,
but we can opt to buy the new cool stuff.
And they've also said there's going to be 2 modes of play now. There's going to be the Prime mode, named after Prime, the book, and basically in Prime mode, they've said already they're not going to re-release rules for every single model in Prime mode. So Prime mode is going to be tournament ready, basically the new stuff, wherever the fluff currently is, right? So Striker will probably never be back in Prime mode. However, there's also going to be called a legacy style of play, where they will come out with rules in Mark IV for all your legacy models. So someday everything you own will be playable in Mark IV, but when you go to a tournament or organized play event, you'll have to ask, is this a Prime event or is this a legacy event?
Yeah, I like that.
And it remains to be seen whether people will do legacy. But for you and I playing at home, we can decide, hey, you want to do classic, Vlad versus Striker? Let's get legacy out.
And I wasn't a Mach 3 fan because it's too competitive for me with all that placing.
Yeah, you're
and everything. And I do feel for the competitive players. I do think this is more watered down. And for those that liked the crunch and the competitive, their cheese got moved.
Yep.
For me, being a more casual player, I think it's being moved in a good direction. But, frankly, you can play Mark II if you want.
Yeah.
You can play Mark III. So I don't even need them to necessarily make a legacy. You and I could just agree, Vlad can play in this thing. So
last couple things real quick here. We got to get our pie rating on these. One is spell racks.
Mm-hmm.
So this is interesting. Not all the casters have spell racks. In fact, Jeremiah Cray does not.
I was going to say Sorsha did not.
So the classic casters don't. But I did notice that in the Lightning Legion list, all the casters there did have spell racks.
All right, so how's this work?
So spell racks basically, in classic Warmachine, every warcaster or warlock, or now they all call them leaders, basically the guy that leads your army.
Warcasters.
Okay, so your warcasters has usually it's usually 6 spells, but not always the same.
Yeah, sometimes 5.
And these spells are unique to that caster, but not always. There were some shared spells, like for example, Snipe and Signar. A lot of the casters that Snipe.
Flesh.
Yeah, Iron Flesh. So there was a sort of a theme style to spells. What they've done, there are some casters that are still that way. Like Cray is that way. He's got a fixed list of spells. But some casters will have maybe 2 or 3 spells that are special to them, and then it'll say 3 racks 3 spells or racks 4 spells. And this then allows you to pick which spells from your faction spell list can be racked, or essentially, if you think in D&D terms, memorized for the spellcaster for that battle. Right? So this allows you to kind of customize your caster now and choose which spells. And my take is that these spells will be unique to your faction, but not necessarily the same spells that Kador has access to, right? So I might have Snipe as a rackable spell, and then different casters could have Snipe. But I may choose not to have Snipe in a particular game. I might choose to go with something else, like Earthquake or something.
Mm-hmm.
What's your reaction to the racking of spells?
Apple pie.
Apple pie. All right.
A medium. I liked that warcasters were unique and different. I'm not going to begrudge anybody that loves this one warcaster and now they can add an effective spell.
Well, what's interesting is you have both. Because some casters don't have rackable spells, so they're still unique.
Yep.
And then you have casters who are rackable. It's kind of like the jacks. Some jacks are configurable, some jacks aren't. So it's sort of a take it or leave it sort of situation.
For me, it's apple pie. I never begrudged it the old way. Right. When I wanted a new set of spells, it forced me to play a new warcaster.
All right, and the last one we have to rate before we get to go ahead and play our game is, and almost doesn't bear mentioning for you and I, but if Craig was here, we'd have to bring it up, which is the new execution mode.
Oh, yes.
So there are now 2 modes of play that a scenario could point out for the game, or you could choose to do. The first is Assassin, which is basically classic Warmachine, which means that when your leader dies, your warcaster or warlock dies, right? In classic Warmachine, it could die from any reason. The jack could kill him, a bomb could go off, a unit could kill him.
Yep.
Whatever the cause of death,
it is,
you immediately lose the game regardless of mission.
You're dead.
You lose, right? Instantly. And of course, this led to a lot of assassination runs, and people would go to win tournaments that way, and especially against players who are less experienced, you get caught off guard with the speed and aggression from someone.
Yeah, chucking a model that you didn't think could happen.
What execution? So that's assassin mode. That still exists, and it probably will still be a common way to play. But a new mode, and actually in the rulebook they kind of mention this for new players in particular. There's now an execution mode.
Which, by the way, 2 way confusing terms.
They really are.
It should have been assassinate and let's be friends or something.
Well, execution mode means that the opponent's leader has to be the one doing the execution. All right. In any case, what this basically means is that your caster can still take damage as normal, but if they're ever reduced to 0 health, instead of dying, all right, they pop back up to, if the thing that killed them wasn't the enemy leader, they pop back up to 1 health, and any of their ongoing spells expire. So they're like stunned from it, they lose concentration, their ongoing spells go away. But they pop back up to 1 health. And the only thing that can ever kill them is a death blow by the enemy leader, Warcaster, Warlock. So basically that means for the newer player, as long as the enemy Warcaster can't get the killing blow on you, you're safe, at least from permadeath, right? Also interesting, in normal Warmachine, you can spend 1 focus point to heal, but in execution mode, 1 focus point heals you 5. So you can heal more easily too and recover more easily in this friendlier leader death mode. The idea being, I think you're forcing more towards scenario play, and also or having to put your own caster at risk to get that kill. What's your reaction to this one?
Apple pie.
Middle?
Yep. Because I think this is going to be a classic scenario of a distinction without a difference.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think, we get that Warcaster hit anyway, and it does all those effects you just talked about. Yeah. It's so going to be so crippling, it's not going to matter.
Well, I also think, let's be honest, this is what makes Warmachine.
Right.
And I'm glad they didn't take it out. I'm glad they still made taking the leader down bad. But in the end of the day, I do think there's an emotional thing what the game's over. I was ahead by 4 points. How is the game over? So this kind of removes that part, at least a little bit. But in the end of the day, I think most Warmachine players know the deal with this.
Yes,
so
exactly. That's why I play Warmachine.
I almost feel like this is it's a nod to the people who complained, but it's but you just got to own it. This is bring page 5 back.
Exactly. And as a player that is more casual, people may be listening being like, why does Raef like it if the game can be over by an assassination? I love it. First of all, it's fun when your opponent, believe it or not, pulls it off. You're like, oh my God, you left your back door open and they swoop in. I didn't like it if it was net listed, but if you yourself figured out, oh, I've got an assassination run, and then you pulled it off, I was cheering for you in that moment.
I agree. I think what's fun about Warmachine is there's oftentimes an all-in poker moment.
Yes.
Where you go all in for the caster kill. And sometimes it works, but oftentimes you leave your caster hanging out. Even if he's not the one doing the killing blow, he was part of the machinations to make it happen.
Yep.
And if it didn't happen, you've either given up the mission because you went away from the mission objective and your opponent now can grab it and get safe, or you expose your own caster to their own ability to do it.
Yep.
And so I like that. Now,
and I liked it when I was losing for the same reasons you just said.
Yes. So I think I would almost always prefer, but the nice thing about it being, and it is apple pie, is that, it's an option. So I don't have to use it. It's not like it's part of the game. So you and I will probably still play assassin mode, but it's nice to know it's there. And it's certainly nice for newer players to kind of say, especially with the quick healing.
I think what it does too, because you and I just aren't in this camp, which is it's a tournament.
Yeah.
Now it's an official rule.
Yes.
Whereas if it's not an official rule, if a person's there to win in a tournament, they're going to curb stomp their opponent.
Yes.
And that's never fun when it's a newer player. So now it's an official rule. The rule will be it's only execution.
And remember, we did Warmachine for kids. Remember when we did it when our kids were little?
Yes.
We had that little kids league. This would have been a great rule for that environment. So it's nice to have it. And you can even say to the kids, we're playing real Warmachine. This is an official rule. This isn't like the light version. This is Warmachine.
Right.
It's a great way to learn the game, So I like that it's there.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt anything.
Right.
But it's apple pie. I'm apple pie.
It's apple pie. Yeah.
All right, there you have it. There it is. Raef, we have a new rating system. It's the pie system.
It's amazing.
And
the stuff that still comes out of us.
I thought it was counterintuitive, but by the end, I could clearly tell. Strawberry rhubarb is clearly better than apple pie, and both are way better than coconut. I almost might critique you a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that the gap between strawberry rhubarb and apple is pretty small? Both are solid pies.
Yeah.
Coconut cream is crap. So you've dropped way down. The gap between
here's what I want you to think about the middle is the so-so apple pie, not the amazing apple pie.
So you're talking about underbaked.
Yes.
Too crunchy. The dough's soft.
Yes.
Not enough sweetness.
Right.
Maybe they didn't do a good blend of apples. You don't get
Correct.
You don't get the sour and the sweet apples blended.
I'm not talking about a pie maker. If a pie maker makes apple pie, you're going to love the apple pie.
Okay.
I'm talking about everybody tries to make it.
So it's a middling apple pie.
Exactly.
It's like a poor man's apple pie.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I see that.
A poor baker's apple pie.
Poor bakers. Yes. Good point. All right. Excellent. Well, there's our thoughts on Warmachine. Now we're going to go ahead.
We're going to play.
Mark 4. Now we're going to play, and then make sure you tune in to our Patreon feed. Become a patron, support the show.
How do they do that?
You head on over to patreon.com and search for the D6 Generation. Or you just go to patreon.com/the D6 Generation, or you can go to the D6generation.com and click the Patreon logo in the upper right-hand corner. Any of those ways will take you to our Patreon page. Become a patron for just $1 or $2 a month. It doesn't take much, and you get access to an amazing back catalog of stuff, including, which will be posted on the same day we post this episode, the special recording of our take on list building in Mark IV and our thoughts while playing the game in Mark IV, and then, of course, the post-Mayhem Margarita discussion.
Yes. And the show's going to exist as it's existing. We're going to be doing these pips.
Yeah.
That's for everybody to consume. There is a Discord channel, too. Now,
yes.
we can't remember right now if it's
well, most of the Discord
not.
Channels require you to be a patron.
Yep.
There's just a general Discord channel that I'm going to take a look at.
That we have to take a look at. But
to see the Discord, you've got to go to Patreon.
We do post in there, and
we
it's
do, yeah.
really fun to see people post their miniature
There's great
pics
paintings.
in there.
Yeah, painting samples are in there. You'll see pictures of our game in there. I put them on Twitter, too.
I'll put in when I'm practicing in music. I'll throw those audio files in there. I wouldn't say you're more active than me, but it's
there a few
active.
times a week.
I wouldn't say it's not active. So,
it's very active.
Anyway,
we got some good listeners.
So there's a community there.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, everyone. Thank you, Raef. And we'll let you know what we think about Mark IV over on the Patreon side.
Let's get cracking.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at info@thed6generation.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Thanks for listening and happy gaming.